Well, more and more, we're hearing of young children experiencing anxiety. Nanny Robina is here to help us identify the signs and the situations that could show that your child is a little bit anxious. So let's talk about this. What signs are you looking for to know if your child is anxious?
Well, some of the signs would be that they start fearing simple everyday tasks like actually being dropped off at school. They'll start coming home saying they don't want to go to school. That would be obviously a major one. Being fearful of things that normally in our everyday life we would just not fear. It could be, let's say, for example, going to the park, they fear going onto the swing. Something very, very simple.
Okay, what about sleep?
Sleep is actually, these are the things that will actually come into them. There's some of the signs that you would see is sleep, lack of it, so to speak.
Yeah.
Signs that we have with our anxiety. No appetite, they may get really fussy with food, and just being, you know, very, very, what's the word? Discouraged, clingy, discouraged with life, and just wanting to be with you all the time and not venture out on their own.
Okay, so they might be scared of meeting strangers. They might not want to join a group of kids. They might not want to speak in front of kids at school. Or be dropped off. So we got this email from a viewer named Christine. So Christine said, being an anxiety warrior myself, I have noticed my son, who is 6 years old, also has anxiety. Now, mine wasn't diagnosed until adulthood, primarily because it just wasn't talked about when I was little. So I think it's very interesting that we see the connection then. A parent that's tuned in because she's gone through it. Yeah. Christine is here in audience with us right now. Christine, thank you so much for coming and for bringing your family with you today. What kinds of signs were you noticing in your 6-year-old Maverick?
We noticed that it was a lot of sensory issues. So he was chewing on the collar of his coat or the cuff of his sleeve. He was very tearful at drop-off, very, very clingy from the first day of JK, and it progressively kept getting worse. In transitions, even the simple tasks were very difficult for him to overcome without a lot of warning and a lot of talking him through it. Sleep was another big one. He really struggled with sleeping through the night, so we really noticed that as well.
So what's interesting is some parents might be hearing this and thinking, oh, well, my kid goes through that. What would be the difference between a child who's just naturally going through the different milestones in a way, like they might be a picky eater, they might not sleep through the night?
I think one of the problems here that you will see is children that fear things can overcome that fear kind of quickly. Let's say, for example, picking up a worm. Whereas if they have anxiety, it's much more challenging. And you have to go about it a slightly different way. And that's what I think that's what parents need to know today. First of all, if you feel that your child has severe anxiety, obviously the first thing you want to do is perhaps contact a mental health professional. But there are things that you can do at home. And one of the things is you as a parent to model calm behavior yourself. Now, I know that's easier said than done sometimes, but like when I go to someone's home, even with a baby, if that baby's not feeding and sleeping well, sometimes it's from the anxiety of the mother. It can start that early. So you as a parent need to try and model calm behavior yourself, because your anxiety can actually spill over to your child, because it's almost like monkey see, monkey do. They almost mimic you and they take on your fears.
So I like that you say obviously the first step is finding a mental health provider that can offer some support. We know that you are a parenting expert, which is why we're speaking specifically to parents. But anytime you see there might be any kind of a mental health issue, a physical issue with your child, you go to the expert or the physician in your life. It's interesting that one of your tips is pay attention to the stories your child concocts. So why do you need to do that?
Well, one of the reasons is sometimes their fears will actually come out in that story. You know, I know just from being a nanny that children will mimic things I've said. You know, I've heard kids say, "You dare do that again and you're in trouble." And I'm like, that's my voice echoing in the background there, you know? So children tend to be, and you know, they sort of bring those things out in their stories. So watch for those stories and you may pick up what their anxiety is about at that time.
This is good advice, I think, for kids and for adults.
Oh, yes.
You say walk them through what's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely.
And I know a lot of adults who want that security as well.
Yeah.
So why is that important?
Because you're actually helping them prepare. People and children, we don't like the unknown.
Yeah.
Particularly children. So if you prep them first, let's say something that's happening on Saturday, you're going somewhere to a party and they fear strangers.
Yeah.
Let's have a little talk just before and start preparing them for that day, and help them relax by reassuring them. Now, reassuring them to a point.
Okay.
I gotta say something here. If you're gonna sympathize with them too much, you gotta be careful that you're not feeding them into their fears, right? Because if you're constantly being sympathetic, then you're basically saying you have something to fear about, and that's where you've got to get a certain balance about taking them out there and facing their fears at the same time.
What a gentle dance parenting is.
Yes.
Right? It's like, I got to make you feel at ease, but then not too much at ease, because I don't want to be the one signaling that there's a problem here. Well, but you want to let them feel sort of some peace of mind.
Yeah, because you see, if you're constantly sympathetic and you shelter them from those fears, well, studies actually show really what happens is that will just escalate and they become more anxious later on in life.
Totally.
So you want to try and move forward, and it could be something so simple like going on the swing at the park. Let's get to the park first, let's walk around the swing, and eventually let's get on the swing, and then that anxiety is being challenged and overcome.
Really good tips there. Thank you for that, Nanny Robina.